So I mean that is interesting. Um, but if we do that, if we deviate too much from, so one of the nice things about WhisperNet right now is it works,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There is there's an infrastructure, there's a protocol in place, there's an infrastructure in place. It can generate all of these observations, all without stepping on each other's toes. It's a robust system that's been demonstrated to work, and we know what we're getting, right?
Yeah,
If
yeah, and if you go to something special, yeah, you're right. You would,
if
and
if we if we try to mess with that too much right now, I think we really risk breaking the system.
yeah, no, they make a good point. Here's another thought. Whisper Daemon, the decoder algorithm, already goes through and does multi-passes, and it after it decodes something, it then knows the exact what the transmitter sent, and so it deconvolutes that signal out of the waveform file
Right.
and goes back and does a second pass. Well, once you've decoded the waveform, maybe you could someone could write a piece of software that just deconvolutes out the frequency shifts associated with the whisper packet and kind of regenerates the equivalent of a single tone.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't involve any changes in the whisper transmitting algorithm or the receive sites.
I would be much more supportive of that, I think, because in terms of doing like, tones and
Yeah,
Doppler shifts
yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah,
that's kind of what, Steve Serwin's looking at doing that sort of thing.
yeah, yeah.
And he'd be doing that. That would be kind of the more experimental, doing the
Yeah,
tones.
yeah.
What the whole beauty of the WhisperNet and PSK reporter and RBN is, lots of hams know how to do it. The system's robust. It can cover a large area. Like all the infrastructure's in place. You
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of don't want to mess with it too much,
No,
right?
I see your point, and I agree with it.
It,
So you don't have to. You're
yeah,
now preaching to the choir. You're right.
yeah. But like, I think, you know, in terms, so I think for these experiments, I think we should kind of work with what we have.
Yeah.
And then I think, for Steve Serwin's experiment, where he wants to do more of this, you know, doing tones and things like that, I think, have their team do that. But it's kind of, that's really a team for people who really are more advanced and really want to spend the time carefully adjusting all this stuff
Yeah.
rather than, kind of messing with the large system that's already in place and working well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm persuaded. You're right. So don't. So you can set aside that proposal
It's
from
an
me.
interesting thought. Now, I think in general, like these, I think if we are able to come up with a specialized whisper mode that is able to give us something more useful scientifically, I think it's something that should continue to be developed. I just don't know that. I don't think I would bank on right today. I would not say we should deploy it for the Eclipse.
No, but I do think that, at least does it make sense? My suggestion is that in post-processing, I mean, the 60 or perhaps 80 or more Whisper Daemon receive sites will have wave files from every Whisper band for the whole of the duration of the event. So these are highly, these will be accurate to 10 or 15 parts per billion wave files.
Yeah.
And it is possible, I think, using in post-processing to perhaps gain more information about what was going on during the event than you can get just from the whisper decoder's output, or even the FSD4W's decoder. So, but we can defer that. That's something that could be considered or studied after the event. So it's
anything you can do in post processing is great. And even now, as you're working on it, like you're talking about, figuring out ways to decorrelate it, I think it'd be very interesting to look at and to see what you can pull out of there.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that is interesting is how many different time scales of variability there are on these ionospheric measurements. The ARRL is working on this propagation book, and I'm reading a copy of the manuscript right now, and they talk about Carl Lutschel-Swab is the main author, and Ward Silver and Ethan Miller are some of the other authors. And they're talking about how we really don't have a good handle on ionospheric variability. So it's like, we know something about traveling ionospheric disturbances, but there's all the short time scale stuff in there. And I think if you show all those short time scale noise and fading, I don't think people really have a good handle on what's causing it. And so maybe, looking at figuring out how to pull it out of that whisper data systematically might help answer some of those questions.
Good. Well, I'm certainly going to have a library of wave files recorded from 60 plus sites available for processing after the solar event. So if they'll be available publicly, and if you or anybody decides it'd be useful to study them, they'll be available. So
great. Yes, I think that's really good, and that's something we should do is with the data. Certainly me or Gareth and our team, we're not going to have time to look at everything, and so if we can make it available to people who do want to look at it after the fact, or even figure out ways to split up people to look at these things, I think that would be really good to make that available.
So good. Well,
yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. So so that's really good. So welcome everybody. I hope everyone had a really nice Thanksgiving. Why don't we start off today? Let's see, are there anything for anyone have agenda items for today?
As usual, I've got about a half a dozen things, some follow-up from the last meeting, and a few things that I'm working on too.
Great. So I think we'll probably turn most of the meeting over to Gary then. But just to see, is there anyone else who had anything they wanted to give on the agenda? I have one thing I'd like to show, and if you go to hamsci.org now, there's now this nice banner. I guess there's a couple things. Did we cover this one last time?
Yes.
No,
No?
Didn't we do that?
not on this call.
Not in this call, maybe another call. So and maybe another call we covered this. So a couple things on hamsci.org. First thing, Christina Collins successfully passed her PhD defense right before Thanksgiving break. So she is now Dr. Christina Collins. So we have a big congratulations to her here. Next thing, if you go to hamsci.org, there's now this nice banner here, Hamsci Workshop 2023. We have the website up. We have officially received support from both ARDC and the National Science Foundation. So we have over $75,000 in support this year. And that's going to go primarily to, paying for travel for people to come in and give presentations. And we have 3 very excellent invited speakers. We have Dr. Joseph Huba. He's going to talk about modeling the ionosphere with SAMI-3. So he does physics-based models of the ionosphere, and he is a plasma physicist who spent quite some time working at the Naval Research Laboratory. And he is now the vice president of Syntec Technologies. And in the past, he headed the space plasma physics section at the Naval Research Laboratory. So we're very happy to have him. We have Jesse Alexander, who is leading something called the Ham Radio Project, exploring the electromagnetic spectrum at the Naval Radio Astronomy Observatory, the NRAO. This is an ARDC-funded project to bring in people from underrepresented groups into the amateur radio community. and teach them about the electromagnetic spectrum. And I heard him speak at the Tapper Digital Communications Conference, and he is absolutely excellent. And then finally, our keynote speaker, who is on our call right now, is Dr. Patricia Reif from the, she is the professor at Rice University and the director of the Rice Space Institute, and has been in space plasma research for more than 45 years. We all got to meet her on the last call. So we're all here. So so this is open, and we are now open for abstract submission. So you are welcome to submit an abstract. They're going to be due February 1st, 2023. And there are probably people on this call that I will be asking you to submit specific abstracts if you don't do so on your own. So I will be in touch. All right, let's turn it over to Gary.
Okay, great. Yeah, it was good to see the banner about the upcoming conference. I think if I'm correct, that's number 6 in a row. So that's we're building quite a following, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Okay, a couple of things were on my to-do list from last week that have been accomplished. One of which was to contact Barth W9JJ, the radio sport and regulatory information manager at the league, and suggest and basically ask for ARL sponsorship. And of course, explaining that as we talked last call, is mostly centered around promotion and publicity and that sort of thing, and not financial support. So I did compose that. I did send it off to Bart a couple of days ago. And if he's like a lot of people, he's probably recovering his working through his stack of emails after the Thanksgiving holiday. So hopefully I'll hear from him soon. And of course, we'll let the group know what comes back as a result of that request.
That was,
Okay.
what was Bart's name and call sign again?
Bart Yankee, JAHNKE,
Right,
and W9JJ.
great. Great.
All right, let me take share my desktop here. Let's see, a couple of things. The other thing we had to figure out last time is we were talking about the Whisper Party quite a bit. And we realized that, the Whisper part of this is really encompasses a little bit more than just Whisper. There's the CWRBN stuff and the PSK reporter and that sort of thing. So I'm wondering if anybody has come up with or has had a chance to think about an alternate name for the Whisper Party. If not, I've got at least one proposal to throw out there. But that was something we wanted to do before too terribly long. So I thought what I came up with this name is,
Let's see. Yeah, no, go ahead.
no, that's okay.
What we call it,
I mean,
the Solar Eclipse Digital Experiment.
okay, that's one option.
Because, so I mean, when we talk about a QSO party, like a QSO party really has this connotation that it's a contest, right?
For
So
sure.
that's the SEQP. The SEQP should actually feel like a QSO party. The digital experiment, is a little more scientific, perhaps. Because what Whisper goes into this, and then what else?
The CW, the skimmers feeding into the RBN, PSK reporter, and also the FT8 stuff will be on the RBN.
Yeah. The digital receiving experiment, the digital.
So I came up with propagation tourney or tournament, thinking that what we're really looking at is radio wave propagation. So that's kind of a bit of the end goal. The digital part is how we're accomplishing it using the digital mode. So that would make sense as well, the digital experiment.
Right. I think when I look at that though, I have a hard time telling the difference between that and the SEQP.
I could understand that. Let's see. See what that looks like on our graphic. It's a receiving, well, I guess we're gonna have people that are both transmitting and receiving, so maybe experiment covers them both pretty well.
Yeah.
So I would have no problem with going with that, certainly. It covers what we're trying to do and how we're doing it.
Yeah. I think I'm still not totally happy with it, but I think it's the one I like the best so far.
Okay, that's fine, that's good. We can revisit it next week, see we've had a chance to think about it and cogitate over it a little bit, that's fine.
Do we have any other suggestions?
Change experiment to investigation.
Digital investigation.
Yeah, I like experiment better though.
Yeah, I like experiment better too.
Yeah,
I think it's the digital that I'm not totally sold on. I think it's the best. Morse code, they call it a fuzzy mode. It's like quasi digital. Yeah, and the problem with reception experiment is even whisper people are still transmitting things, right?
Right.
So it's gotta be.
put propagation in there.
That's kind of what the SEQP is too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I think the thing about digital, it kind of leaves me cold because it's digital what? With
Yeah,
digital
digital
mode?
mode experiment might be a better choice. I like that a little bit better.
Sets a parameter. It says what it is.
Yeah, I kind of like things that say what they are.
We want to try to inject some fun of some sort into it. Is there any way we can work it around and call it a digital mode challenge?
See what that looks like. That's where I'd
Have
come
to
up
be-
with tournament on the last one, but challenge is similar.
Yeah,
I like that. That's a little better.
I'm trying to think of analogies from the world of sports. I'm not much of a sports guy. I'm thinking of golf and.
I mean, the reason I like experiment is, we are ham size, so experiment is a very science sort of thing.
Challenge puts a little bit of a weight on the participants, better than some of the other words. Makes me want to play, that type of thing.
that's what I was thinking of. We want to make it fun, want to make it kind of like a contest.
Then that could work very well then.
Has a metric.
Is that too long?
It fits in the box.
Um,
Yeah, take out the word
SEDMC.
modem.
SEDC.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if we get the word mode out there, Jim just suggested that, that's a little more brevity. But again, digital modes are, people talk about them a lot and they think about FT8 and some of these other things, and maybe that's just me, maybe that's not other people.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, when I think of digital, I think of flip-flops and NAND gates and logic and that sort of thing, but
Me too.
digital mode, now that's starting to bring the communications part back into it for me.
Yeah, I like the digital mode. I think hams will understand what that is.
I really think that when you get it down to the level of the participants that are just the ham radio operators getting into it, that in most of the stuff that I'm reading and seeing in club meetings and stuff, they are using the term digital mode and then differentiating the different digital modes. And so I think when you take it down to more at my level, where it's more of an amateur, I think the digital mode is very familiar for, I don't know, this isn't a good term, but your basic ham radio operator, and they're very familiar with those two words to describe it. It's just my 2.5 cents worth.
No, that's good input. Well, I'm gonna hit the save key. We can always edit it again, but let's put it on the shelf for now. I think that's the best we've got, and we'll take a look again next week and see if we want to go with it. Give it the thumbs up or thumbs down. All right.
That sounds good.
Okay, the other thing I've been working on a little bit is the, we talked about last week, building an ADIF to Cabrillo mode converter. And we agreed that'd be a good thing for Hamside to take on, because I think we can pull some more FTA type operators in there, people who wouldn't be interested in setting up N1MM and other ancillary contesting software. So we agreed that would be a good thing and something we could accomplish before October. So what I've done is, much like I used to do at work, I've written up a specification. So when the time comes, we've got a person available to work on this, I can introduce them to what we want to do. I've got all the web type inputs we would want to get off the user, what that might look like, the actual technical, the mappings between the ADIF format and the Cabrillo format are all here. There's links to both of those standards. And then of course, a sample Cabrillo file too, that we want what the output should look like, taken off the Hamside website. So I believe this is pretty well complete, and we can just kind of leave this in our back pocket for when we're ready to use it. But Nathaniel, be aware that it's out there, and when it's a good time to task somebody with doing this, I think we're ready to go.
Okay, I guess we need to find someone to task with this. So we need a volunteer programmer. Gary?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And we could probably raise it on the Tangerine call on Monday nights and stuff too, to beat the bushes there as well.
That's true. We could also ask for someone on the Hamside list. We can eventually, where if the proposal gets funded, I have some funding for an undergraduate student. This might make a good task for an undergraduate student to do. So there's a number of different options.
Okay, I'll take the task of putting it out on the ham side list just to see what we come up with. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Okay. And some of the other calls, so that's fine. Okay, that's all we need to talk about there. Other thing that, Nathaniel, I think you and I ought to figure out when we kind of set a target date for being able to put our current set of rules up on the live HamSci website. I did a little bit of editing over the last couple of weeks. I took some of the suggestions were made on the last call back on the 23rd, I think it was. And I think we're pretty much ready to go. I mean, we can obviously make some changes later on when we've got this ADIF to Cabrillo thing going, but we can kind of hold those in the back for now. And
I
just get
think
the
go
regular
ahead and
rules out there.
I think go ahead and put them on. The way I generally do things with the HamSci website is I make changes quietly, and then I once I'm pretty happy with the changes, then we announce them. So I think you can start adding those things in, and then quietly we just we talk about them on this call, and then when we're happy with it, we can then advertise it more widely.
Okay. So if for that to happen, then I would think it'd be great if you could back up the current version of the website. And then you and I've got to work to get me the credentials to be able to manage the live site, because I think I'm only on the test site right now.
That sounds good. I do I keep I think either nightly, I think I keep nightly backups, nightly or weekly.
Oh, okay.
I can
Okay.
I do have an automated method of having the website backed up, and I also I have it backed up in at least 2 different ways. So I'm in 2 different places, but I've got multiple methods of doing the backups. So we should be in a good spot with that, I think.
Okay, great, great. Takes care of the website. Yeah, I'll update. Well, actually, I'm still working on a test site, but I've got a few pages I want to put up, and I think that'll tie this whole thing together. And also to make sure we differentiate the future runnings of the SEQP from the previous one, so that the search engines and things don't get confused between new and old. I think that's
Yeah.
doable.
Yeah, I think we will want to keep the old material on there.
Yeah, my thought was just to make sure all the links have the year 2017 in them, and I think that'll keep things separated.
I think you're right.
Okay, the other thing I've been working on is I don't have anything to show because it's a little bit too early, is that Becky, the publications manager from the league, suggested both QSP and articles in the so-called New Ham magazine On the Air. And I've started working on what she requested was about 1,000-page article for the On the Air magazine.
1,000 pages. That sounds pretty
Yeah,
long for On the
1,000
Air.
words.
Yeah, 1,000 words. Yeah, I couldn't write 1,000 pages if my life depended on it.
That would be really impressive.
Particularly
Well,
to
in
do
some of
it,
the papers you've showed, Nathaniel, I think there's a lot of words in some of those.
We'd get a lot of advertising support at 1,000 pages, so.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
particularly
you're right,
to do it within the time frame that Becky wants it. That would even be more impressive.
Agreed.
So
what
I can, just so you know, I'm looking at my computer right now. I do have a backup of the HamSci website as of last night. So I keep backups automatically every day for the I think for 7 days, and then like every week after that. I've got a lot of backups here. So yeah, no, it's well backed up.
Good. Okay, that makes me feel better. Just so I don't do anything that
Nope.
causes us grief. So let me take a quick peek at this just to get you, just to let you know where I came off on this thing. Nathaniel, you were talking a little bit, I think you mentioned it. The folks from NASA, they were suggesting that we not necessarily refer to people as citizen scientists, but also as volunteers.
Yes.
If I remember that from last week.
Yep.
So what I was thinking about starting the article off with is that, you know, volunteerism being an important aspect of ham radio, and then going right into there's a new volunteer opportunity involving citizen science.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the On the Air magazine, for the beginner, the newer hams, or people who haven't been or just getting back on the air after many, many years, I thought that might be a way to pick their interest and get them started.
Well, the league is making volunteerism a theme for 2023, so it's perfect. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. In fact, they're going to be talking a lot about it at Hamcation as well. So.
That's great.
Yep. So the timing is perfect.
That's funny too, because in this morning's grape call, there was some comments in the paper that Christina was reviewing about better explaining citizen science and the volunteering portion of it too. So apparently that is the hot topic for the year. So that's great.
Yeah.
And I was going to go on a little bit a very non-technical explanation of what what we're doing and what we're hoping to accomplish. One thing, now tell me if this gives anybody's heartburn. I wanted to talk about, I don't want to go into a lot of scientific detail about how propagation works. So I use the term that we bounce signals off the ionosphere. And I know well that we refract them, not bounce them. But I thought for the beginners of the world, I thought that would be okay to use that term and not send us anybody over the edge, hopefully. But
yeah, I don't know. I do like the word refract better.
Okay.
Or you could use the word, you could say bend signals back to Earth. So bend is another word instead of refract. They're actually trying to get away from the word layer to refer to the ionosphere, and they talk about a region, because a layer implies it's very thin and a region has some depth to it. And we can say that it begins, the ionosphere begins, I usually think in kilometers for the ionosphere. It begins around, 80 kilometers altitude and goes up to about 100. Up to about a 600 to 1,000 kilometers altitude. So, yeah, and you make it like about 80 to 1,000 kilometers altitude. Yeah, I think having a range like that is better.
I agree.
Yeah, and then so when you say roughly, so and then again with the 60 miles, you should have a range there. So if you convert 80 to 1,000 kilometers to miles.
Right.
Yeah. You can just delete the word layer, so you don't need the parentheses there. Just put the word region in.
Yeah, I'm just typing my notes in there. That's how I'm taking my notes.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so then, so I would use the word region, and I would make sure that you have a range rather than just one number.
So Nathaniel,
Yeah.
and Gary, so I think some of you know, I do an entry level presentation. I've done it to clubs actually all over the nation and to one international group, and I'm doing it in Visalia, and it's an introductory. In fact, Mary has heard it, but I was just going to add in there too that in mine, I'm talking to people that really don't know hardly anything, complete. I'm not sure the word novices to the ionosphere and the sun and stuff, and I use the word bend or refract in those presentations, and I haven't had any issues with somebody raising a hand or saying I have no idea what that means or something. So I would support using either bend or refract. Either one of those are pretty effective. And then you already brought up region. That was something I was going to mention as well, is that you see layer, but I know that in most of the recent ham radio books on the ionosphere, the one by Carl that came out last year, I think. They're using region more and more now, not using the word layer. So it's something they're familiar with. So again, just my 2 cents worth, or maybe today it's 1.5 cents. I'm not sure.
Well, it's inflation, so we'll ask for 3. How's that? No, this is great input. That's exactly what I was looking for. That's exactly why I asked the question. Okay. So yeah, this definitely needs work. I don't want to bore the whole group with going through word by word when I need to clean things up a little bit. But so yeah, I hope to give them a brief explanation on propagation. And I wanted to talk about, I don't want to get into transient ionospheric disturbances. And I basically said the way I put it is we're in a nutshell, we're studying fading. There's rapid fading and slow fading and such on and so forth. And maybe some of these people have never been on HF and they've never experienced this.
Yeah, a popular word these days too is we talked about this morning, ionospheric variability.
Okay. I just want to keep in mind our audience here too. The other thing is too is we'll see what happens when the league edits this thing when it's finally done. But
and Gary, this is something, if I can be of any help on it, let me know. This is something I would be quite interested in, where I, like I said, where I do those presentations, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from people that have had no exposure as to what's worked and what hasn't. So if I can add any value, reach out to me.
no, I'm sure I'd be glad to have you review this thing and take a look at it offline outside of the meeting. If you wouldn't mind, if you would stick your email address in the chat, I'd be surely glad to work with you on it. Especially since you've been doing some teaching and you've been working with some people already, so. And then, I talk about the sun's impact on radio communication, how it affects the ionosphere from the top side, and the fact that, it normally happens over 24 hours. But during the eclipse, it's going to happen in a matter of minutes. And we just expect to see some interesting results. You can easily monitor and see what happens when things occur in minutes as opposed to hours. So that's what I was trying to get through in this section. But that, of course, would lead into the solar eclipse QSO party. A few details
I have
about
one
it.
comment. I have one comment.
Sure, Pat.
When you say sunlight, that to me sounds like visible sunlight. I would say energetic part of the solar flux. It's really only the EUV and X-ray that actually causes the ionosphere.
If you put extreme ultraviolet and X-ray radiation from the sun or energy from the sun, I think people will understand that.
So if you just say sunlight, they say, "Oh, put up a solar panel." It's only the energetic portion of the solar spectrum that matters.
Okay, so extreme UV and the other term.
X-ray. X-ray.
X-ray. Okay, thanks, Pat. Okay, I'll figure out how to work that in there.
Yeah, you could either use the word radiation or energy. Those are probably both fine.
Yeah, one time radiation was a bad thing to talk about because after Fukushima and 3 Mile Island, and it spooked a lot of people. So.
Or you could say flux, energy flux.
Okay, good.
One thing that's interesting that I didn't really appreciate until I was doing a comparison of the ionospheres of the various planets. What's interesting about the ionosphere of Mars, Venus, and Earth, even though the atmospheric density is 100 times bigger at Venus and 100 times less at Mars, the ionospheric maximum density is the same in all 3 planets. You know why?
No.
Because every UV photon is used. It's limited by the solar output, not by the atmospheric density. They're all absorbed.
Huh.
And
So
that
there.
makes
solar
sense.
output of that doesn't drop off with distance then, like radio waves and things.
Well,
do as we transmit.
it drops off a bit, yeah. So it'd be a factor of 2. But the atmospheric density is a factor of 100. You know, between Mars and Earth, and another 100 between Earth and Venus. And it's, you know, it's the solar variability that affects the maximum ionospheric density, because they all get absorbed. And because they're all absorbed, even though they have actually a fairly long lifetime, it's just that the collision frequency is so fast that it recombines fast when it goes dark at low altitudes, and of course slower at high altitudes. But continue on. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt with some physics, but
No, that's interesting. And now I know something that none of my friends know except. So,
that's
thank
what
you.
my brother wants to have on his tombstone. I know something you don't.
Pat, you
Once
could have it, you could have him change that slightly to, I know something now that you don't.
Yep.
So once I thought the readers had an understanding of sun and radiation and whatnot and their effect on long distance communications, I explained that we're going to be using the Solar Eclipse QSO party to get on the air, make contacts, generate data, so on and so forth. And just briefly summarize, not the rules necessary, but just a few key points of what people would want to be doing during the QSO party. Obviously, give them a link to the real rules, but just enough to sort of whet their appetite a little bit. I thought it was important too, at the end, I was going to obviously talk about where this idea for the SEQP came from, and get Hamsai its time in the lights here too, near the end of the article. Some comments about being a frequent sponsor of in-person and virtual gatherings. I know we had the discussion about the Orlando Hamcation this morning. I put something in about being a participant at the major ham radio conventions, which I think is true, and whatnot. So that's the direction I'm going, and I appreciate everyone's input. Give me something to work on for the next couple of weeks.
I think that looks great.
And then once this is done, I'm not sure what happens. I assume I'll send it back to Becky, and she or another editor or somebody will get in touch with me. I imagine they'll want some sort of illustrations and things, or maybe the legal develop. I have no idea. This is new territory for me, so I'm learning as I'm going. But Ron, yeah, I'll definitely be in touch. Thanks. Okay,
My pleasure.
And that was about it for me. I just wondered, Nathaniel, maybe if you'd heard more from Steve Serwin about his TDOA event or not, or if Steve's just been busy and hasn't been with us for a couple of weeks.
I saw him this morning, and he's been working on a poster for the AGU meeting. So, but no, I haven't heard anything from him specifically about the TDOA project. So we could probably get in touch with him on that, but he's definitely around.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's nothing. I'm not involved with it directly at all, but I just wanted to keep that forefront so we didn't, because he's definitely got some good ideas.
Yeah, no, I think, as I said, he's definitely around, so we'll just have to loop back with him. He was on the Grape call this morning, and he just sent me a poster that he's going to be giving at the AGU meeting.
All right, that's good. That's it from my end today.
Great, that's wonderful. So let me just kind of wrap up the notes here. Which, let's see. So I can say that Nathaniel announced that abstracts submission is now open for the HamSci workshop. See hamsci.org/hamsci 2023. Gary contacted Bart Jenke, W9JJ, at the AWR requesting leak sponsorship, not financial support, but more for promotion. We went to rename the Whisper parties to something that includes more than just Whisper. Group suggested Solar Eclipse Digital Mode Challenge. Gary's ready to have an ADF to Cabrillo converter to support people who want to run FT8, but don't want to worry about N1MM integration. He will look for a volunteer programmer on the HamSci list to help out with this. Nathaniel will get Gary access to hamsci.org. The website is backed up on a nightly basis. And then Gary has, showed a draft of a piece for On the Air magazine. So for ARRL's On the Air magazine that he wrote about the SEQP. The group gave suggestions and comments. That all sound good? Great. And let's see, so we're still planning on meeting next week, but the week after that is going to be the American Geophysical Union meeting, and that's going to be the fall meeting in Chicago, fall AGU. So we will not have a telecon that week. And then let's see, we may be on hiatus for I'd say, because then the week after that is December 22nd. I'm not sure if we want to meet then. We can if you want, but we might want to take a break for like Christmas and New Year's and then come back in the new year. So I don't know. What do you think, Gary?
I prefer to get together on the 22nd, even if it's for a short meeting.
Great. So we'll
just
get
'cause that's a
together.
long gap.
Yeah, that is a long gap. We'll get together on the 22nd. I may end up having to not be there personally because we are going to be conducting interviews, I think, for new professor positions here at the university. And I may end up being obligated to attend those interviews. So, but there is no reason that you cannot, all of you can certainly meet even without me, and keep working on things. And then you can certainly touch base with me. And if I can make it, I certainly will. So it just comes down to what I have to do for my department here. Great. So for the AGU meeting, I was just chatting with Pat Reif in the chat there. I know she's going to AGU. I don't know that anyone else on this call is going to AGU. Gareth is going to AGU. So we might look at having a HamSci get together on Wednesday night at AGU. So I'll try and get that planned out as well. Meet up because I know Pat said she can be there Tuesday or Wednesday. So we'll look at doing that. All right, this is great. Anything else?
Just Nathaniel, I did send you a test abstract. I don't know if you've had a chance to, I'm not, just so you know, I know you're trying to test the system, so at least there's one of them in the hopper, so.
Oh, we can take a look at that right now. We can see if I've gotten any. One response. Gary, let's see.
Okay.
It took you 12 minutes and 22 seconds to complete it. So yes, It looks good. Great. So it seems to be working. Thank you very much. More details, one response, volunteers, perfect. That looks good. Okay, thank you for testing that.
No problem.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Good
Thanks
meeting.
to everyone for the help.
Surprised.
Have a good week.
You too, thanks.
73.
Crazy.